Hey, Hope Church, wanted to bring you another midweek devotional. We finished up our time in 2 Corinthians last week, and so I want to take you to another passage for the next few weeks to think about. And that passage is John 15. It's a familiar passage to many. It's the vine and the branches passage, but hopefully this will give you some new thoughts to consider and to apply in here. The first thing that I want you to think about is the context. This passage sometimes is used, as many passages are, to be almost scare passages. When you read something about what abiding is and the need for us to abide, and then when he talks about fruit bearing, and we get down to verse 5 and he says that any branch that does not bear fruit is going to be gathered, pruned basically, and thrown into a fire, verse 6. And so I've been in places where that verse definitely has been used to try to scare me into obedience. And I want to kind of take a different look at this passage and see if that's really what it has to say in some future weeks. But I want to start with the context here. Chapters 13 through 17 are what many people refer to as the upper room discourse or the farewell discourse. These are the last major words of Jesus before he heads to his trial and then ultimately to the cross. And so these are intimate words that he has with his disciples. They include some really amazing teaching, whether both by example and by word. Starting in chapter 13, Jesus' humble service of the disciples by washing their feet. The creator of the universe, the one who made those feet, the one who created that dust, is the one who washes it off. It's a rather amazing passage. And then you get to the end of it in John chapter 17, where we think of the Lord's Prayer as what's found usually in Matthew 5 through 7. But really, John 17 is the Lord's Prayer because it's Jesus praying for us. A lot of people talk about it as Jesus' high priestly prayer, where he is interceding for us. He's becoming our high priest. He's speaking and praying over his disciples and ultimately over us. And so these passages, 13 through 17, are some intimate, but I would also say some encouraging passages. These are the last things that Jesus is going to say to his disciples. He's not seeking to scare them. He's seeking to encourage them. He's seeking to give them strength for what they're about to go through in his experience at the cross and waiting for his resurrection. And so I want you to see them in that light. I don't want you to see them as a passage to be scared. Secondly, some people think of these as the passages where he's actually walking from the upper room into where he's going to go and pray. And in chapter 15, he talks about the vine and the branches, and some people think that maybe he's walking by a vineyard, and he's kind of using that as an illustration of what it looks like to have life in Christ. And so I want to encourage you to read this passage. Maybe it's all 13 through 17 over the next few weeks. But specifically, I want to encourage you to take some time and to read through John chapter 15, especially about the first 15 verses, and ask yourself, is this an encouragement to me? And if not, why not? Because I think Jesus wants to encourage us through these words of what does it mean, what does it look like, and what happens when we are abiding in him. So take some time this week to look at it, and we'll come back to it next week and dive into it a little bit further. Love you, Hope Church. See you soon.